All right, what's up, y'all? Welcome to Say What I Mean, and I'm here with my man Fi. What's going on? How you feeling?
I'm good, bro. I'm good. How are you?
I'm
Happy,
good.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. So, my man over here, for my people that's into politics, heavy into not just what they show on CNN. It's hard to find other people to chop it up with like that. But my man over here, he deep in it as well. So this is not going to be structured. We're just going to have a regular conversation. And what I want to start off with is the Senate race right now. So overall, these two Senate races in Georgia, what's your overall feeling on it?
Man, it's gonna be close. Well, right now we saw all these numbers coming in right now. The early vote obviously was very good for the Democrats. The Republicans, they got a lot of in-person vote today. We just don't know what the turnout was in terms of the election day and the margin split, because election day November it was 61-39, and for the Republicans that was enough to win the Senate race. Well, at least David Perdue to get almost 50%. He almost avoided the runoff. And then in the other special election, the Republicans had more votes than the Democrats if you add up all the candidates. But obviously Joe Biden got he got that 12,000 vote margin to just squeak by. So it's going to be really close. I want to make a prediction like based on the data, but because the data looks very good for the Democrats in terms of the early voting, but I think a lot of us who are on the left side of the spectrum, I think a lot of us are a little scarred from November because the Republicans, they turned out. They Trump, he brought them out. So we'll see how many come out now with all this rigged election talk and and all the uncertainty with that and all the mixed messaging.
See, that's where I was going. Because Trump is not on the ballot, I wonder what's the turnout is going to be. But you can say the same thing about not Biden himself, because I don't think Biden is a magnet, but presidential elections is usually a higher turnout. So
Right.
with Trump not being on the ballot and also Trump going at the governor and the secretary of state, do you think he would depress Republican turnout?
So I want to say yes, just based on all the evidence we see right now in the data, like just from what we've seen in early voting. But we don't know. But then again, we don't know about the turn if there's a turnout surge right now. If something happened in the last couple hours, if they actually got their people out. But interestingly enough, I don't know if you saw it earlier. I just saw it now, but LeFlore and Perdue, they sent out like a joint statement like around 4 o'clock, like telling people to head out to the polls. Like, I don't think you do that if you know you're going to win. I don't think you're, and her stunt last night where she said she was going to object to the Electoral College certification last night, she pulled that stunt off. I think that's kind of a little bit of a desperation move. And you saw what the Trump supporters were doing to her last night. They were like, fight for Trump and stop the steal and all that stuff. So
Now,
we'll see.
I want to see if you agree with me. I think LeFlore is a little bit weaker than Purdue, in my opinion. So
I agree.
if these races split, I think LeFlore is more likely to lose than Purdue. Now, do you have a preference of which of the Democratic candidates win? Do you like Warlock better or Offside? Which one of those candidates do you like better?
I think they're ideologically on the same wavelength, but I think I do like Reverend Warnock better, just because. I mean, you look at the funny thing is he's been more, running for Senate in a southern state, he's obviously got to be, a little bit more moderate than his stances on the pulpit. I mean, you see some of his sermons. I mean, yo, you're like, yo, he's for real. So I think it also showed in the election in November, how he was able to kind of, overtake the field in the jungle primary and get the most votes. So he does his campaign team and him, they do know what they're doing. But I will say this about Ossoff. He is like, your milquetoast toast, like, white boy, consultant-driven campaigns, but it's not as much as it was back in 2017 when he ran for Congress.
His campaign was terrible.
His campaign was terrible in 2017. His campaign right now has been actually pretty good.
Yeah.
He's been, hammering home on the corruption of both LeFlore and Perdue. He's basically calling them, crooks and criminals, and he's been, and I'll give him credit, man. He's been hammering home the stimulus talk, I think, more than any Democrat was doing, even before the general election. He's been hammering that home every single day.
Yeah, when the whole talk about the $2,000 came out, he was one of the first ones to come out to support the $2,000 stimulus, which is good. And I just wish the Dems played that a little bit better. But they didn't totally collapse on it. But the Senate, like Chuck Schumer, I'm not a big fan right now.
Oh yeah.
Well, I can just say it right now, I'm not a big fan.
Period. Right.
I mean, is he the worst senator there? No, but his strategies is all wrong from beginning to end. Just like 2016 could be blamed on Schumer. Schumer doesn't get enough blame for 2016 because when they was talking about TPP and how that was going to depress Democratic-based turnout with the trade deals, he was like, we'll just pick up those suburban votes.
Right. Yep, he infamously said that at the convention. Yeah, I remember. I think he said it right before the convention.
Yeah, they support him with being Senate Minority Leader, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think the reason why he became the leader after Harry Reid was he just has. I think personally he just has good relationships with just about every Democrat in the caucus. Him and Bernie Sanders are actually very cool with each other. And then obviously with the more conservative members, they're cool with him, even though they have their disagreements, like, because, he's a New York liberal. But apparently, he worked those relationships over the years, and that's why he's there, which is how things happen in D.C.
Plus, he's
a crazy thing.
A New York senator, which he have very close access to Wall Street.
Right, a lot of money, a lot of fundraising. So that's why all these candidates he recruits to run for the Senate, they all are able to raise huge sums of money, right? Because they're able to do it themselves in some way, but they also, are helping grow that resource for the party, which so the Democrats, that's the issue with the Democrats. Like, the money is not the issue with them. The issue is where they're getting the money from, because they don't necessarily have to go to those sources. And the funny thing is with these runoffs, apparently, I think I read this. I think I read it. Maybe the New Yorker had a piece about it a month or two ago. But he's not enthusiastic about Warnock or Ossoff, which is funny. So that actually gives me a little optimism that they both could actually pull it off.
The Warnock, I could see why he wouldn't necessarily love him, because he didn't gauge a lot of feelings about being anti-war,
advocating for Palestinian human rights. Yeah.
His stance on Cuba.
Yeah.
But his stance on Cuba is really not that different than President Obama's.
No, it's not. Or even what Biden was saying 4 years ago. You know what I mean? So
right, right. But that could lead to a whole different conversation. Right. There. I'm not even going to get into that right now. I'm going to put that to the side. So what I want to focus on now. So if the Dems do win both of these races, because if they lose, it's basically, the Republicans and Mitch McConnell's going to go. But if they win both of these races, what do you think that would mean going forward for the Biden administration?
So what that would mean is there's a window for Biden to get a couple of things done legislatively. And the two of those things would be one, which would, if the Dems do win these two seats, the first thing they would do is probably maybe even before Biden takes office, is they probably would try to, with the House, and every Dem senator would have to go along with it, but they would probably formulate a budget reconciliation bill that can pass both chambers very quickly. And you need only 51 votes to pass a budget reconciliation bill. So, and you can do that once per year. That's how the GOP did those tax cuts 3 years ago. They did it with 51 votes. A lot of people kind of forget that because they tried to repeal the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, through reconciliation in the summer of 2017. But then obviously we remember what John McCain did on the Senate floor, shutting that joint down. So the GOP, they used their latch-dish effort in 2017 to do the tax cuts, because that was kind of like their last legislative opportunity to do anything, because 2018 midterms are right around the corner. So I think that's going to be the first thing that they do. The other thing is they would probably be able to control, the debate a little bit about like an infrastructure package that could pass, because there probably is 10 Republican senators who do want to see an infrastructure bill passed. And if they would buck McConnell, it depends, because there's some that are up. There's some that are up in 2022 that want to campaign on something.
But
so we'll see.
You said 10 senators, so
yeah,
you going with the assumption that they're not going to get rid of the filibuster?
No, there's no way. I don't think there's any chance that they get rid of the filibuster, not with the margin being at 50-50, with Kamala being a tie. I don't think. Now, if they had won those seats in Maine and North Carolina, and these two tonight were to get to 52, you may have some, little bit of room. But I don't think they'll be able to do that at all.
Yeah. One of the things is you have senators like Manchin, and I think even Dick Durbin against getting rid of the filibuster, which is maddening. I think all of those type of politicians need to go. Simply that they're using not the filibuster as an excuse
to not do anything.
Right. We saw this when the Dems had a supermajority. They had a supermajority, and you had some conservative Dems that went vote for the bills, and they kept using the filibuster as an excuse not to get stuff done. And for me, that should be one of the top things. We have a lot of things we prioritize. Unless you get rid of the filibuster, there's nothing else to talk about. And the Republicans,
I agree.
Yeah, the Republicans do it all the time. Like, you think the Republicans would let the Dems filibuster a top priority for them? Of course they wouldn't.
No, they're very strategic. They pick which battles they want to fight. So if it's tax cuts, then they obviously don't need the filibuster, because they would just do it through reconciliation.
Yep.
That's how George W. Bush did it too. A lot of people forget George W. Bush's tax cuts, they didn't pass with 60. They passed with 57. Some Dems did vote for it, but it was like in the upper 50s. So the Dems, and I think the classic case is the Affordable Care Act, right? Because they had to slog to try to get it to 60. But the funny thing is, they passed a revised version of it with 51 votes. A lot of people don't remember that.
Yeah. It's because they got rid of the. A lot of people that's not in the politics will be like, "What you talk about, the Cornhusker kickback?"
Cornhusker kickback, exactly.
Which was about, was it $600 million that was allocated to go to Nebraska?
Nebraska, because the senator from Nebraska, I think it was Bob Kerrey. Yeah.
Nelson, wasn't it?
No, Nelson. Yeah, it was Nelson. Yeah, it was Nelson. Yep.
Yeah, he wanted a special deal in order to vote for the Affordable Care Act, so they gave him that little kickback, and there was a couple other kickbacks as well. So
Yeah, Montana. So Montana got one because Max Baucus he was the chair of I forgot which committee it was, but he had been in the Senate since like the late 70s. The last Dem the last Dem besides Tester
Hmm.
to hold a seat there, but so basically what he got was actually pretty. And actually, if you look at the American Prospect, Dave Dayen, he wrote a piece about it actually. But there's like a provision in the ACA where if there's like an environmental disaster, environmental hazard in a locality, those people that have been affected can receive Medicare. And the reason why is because there's a town in Montana that had some, I think it was asbestos breakout or something. I forgot what it was. And Max Baucus was able to get that town of like 3,000 people Medicare to cover the treatment and the recovery for the outbreak that was happening there.
Yeah.
So now people have said, under that statutory authority, could a Biden administration extend Medicare to everybody because of the public health disaster we have right now?
I think they could if they wanted to.
If they wanted to be that creative, I think they could do it.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing, because I know we gonna get off here in a little bit. I wanted to ask you. I was talking about this on social media. I don't know if you up on this story. So in Oregon, are the CARE Act funds that they received about one. The state received about 1.4 billion from the CARES Act, and they was going to allocate $62 million from that fund for their Black residents and Black businesses, because the data stated that Black businesses and Black residents was impacted more than everybody else from Corona. And one of the reasons they said a lot of it's funny this is Oregon, because Oregon have population of Black people is like -5. So I don't know how they even got the data,
right?
But they were saying that Black people was impacted more because the average Black business owner houses wasn't worth as much, so they couldn't leverage their houses in order to stay afloat and survive. So they, like I said, it was only 62 million out of 1.4 billion, but two white business owners and Mexican resident of Oregon filed a lawsuit to stop those funds from reaching Black businesses and Black residents.
Wow.
And because they sued, they can't spend none of the CARE Act money right now. So this leads me, I just wanted to let people know, and it leads to a bigger question. So I'm 100% for reparations, and I don't care who don't support it. It needs to happen, or any type of Black policies. It doesn't have to be reparations.
Right.
But it goes to show you, anytime you allocate something that they say is specifically Black, there's a lot of pushback. How do, for people that's into and better to have a better Black community, get around some of these policies and some of these suits that happen when you have something that says directly Black?
That's a big question. I don't know. I really don't know exactly how you get around some of those. I mean, I think the best thing, and I'm in Maryland. I'm here in Prince George's County, which is one of the blackest counties in the country, probably the most affluent county in the country for Black Americans, outside of maybe the Atlanta metro area.
Yeah.
And I think, and the issue with places like Oregon, my father actually, when he came to this country, he was in Salem, Oregon to begin with, which is pretty wild for a Somali guy who's in the who's basically a kid in the 1970s.
Out of all places.
Out of all places, right?
Yeah.
Where they filmed Days of Our Lives, right? So in places like that, it's tough because you don't have the representation, even though that's like a Democratic state, right? But it's like 90% white, and you don't have the representation you would have in states like New York or Maryland or even like Georgia or wherever it is. So on a representation level, you're already behind in places like that. In terms of like, I mean, stuff like that, you have to change the law to prevent that stuff from happening. And obviously people got to get more involved in the political process to make that happen. And like, obviously there's a lot of good white people who realize that this is a problem that you can get on your side. But the issue is it's so embedded in everything that goes on, the business of this country. Like at every twist and turn, there is something that is like, that can be activated to thwart something like that, like aid that's specifically supposed to go to Black businesses or homeowners. And like, we saw, and like even in the financial crisis, all that aid that was supposedly supposed to go to save people's homes, didn't make it to people's homes. Like it was just going to the banks to to basically say, okay, you can just do a short sale on this.
Now,
and you know what I mean? Like, and then that's like a whole other, and that's how a lot of Black people lost their homes, and they still are. I mean, there's still a lot of ramifications left from 10, 12 years ago.
all right. I know you got to get out of here, but I know we're going to do this. We're going to try to do this at least twice a month.
Twice a month, yeah. We can try. Are you gonna have like guests? Are you gonna have like any?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. I like chopping it up. One of the things, because you mentioned housing, did you read Barack Obama's Promised Land book?
Only bits and pieces so far. I haven't read the whole thing. Is there something specific in there?
You gotta get like me. You gotta get on Audible. I just did that audio book. Back here I got the books too. I still read regular books, but to save time, because I'm working, I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff, and I try to read like some regular books. I do get Audible as well. Get audio books. So I got it. I got the audio book of it, and it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. From a good viewpoint, like I was thinking with some of the stuff like Obama, I remember that time. That's not how that shit happened.
Yeah, there's a lot of revision, and he's doing it so blatantly because he knows the critiques of his administration. He knows he could have did X, Y, and Z. He knows he's making excuses. At least the good thing is he's being honest in some way, even though he's being dishonest, because it's so blatant. And that's why he shut up for 3 years. 3.5 years. You didn't see him anywhere. So
yeah, but most people is not that into policy, so you can kind of get away with kind of fudging a little bit of.
And the thing is, he's so popular right now because he got more popular after Trump got nominated and elected. And then obviously being outside the limelight, people liked him more, especially
every president too. That happened with Bush, because when Bush left office,
his
approval rating 26.
Yeah, he was in the upper 20s, lower 30s. Yeah.
The way they talk about Bush now, you would thought he was a great president instead of a disaster.
They completely. I feel like they completely rehabilitated him since 2016.
Like they completely forgot about Katrina and the disastrous response there. They forgot about WMDs,
Iraq.
The pretext of him getting into Iraq. They forgot about the disaster that was no child left behind.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, they forgot the tax cuts that blew up the budget and turned a surplus into a massive deficit. I mean, like the way they talk about now, because he's not Trump, you thought he was great. Now, Trump would do that because Trump was that bad. Like Trump was really, really, really bad.
Right.
Bush might have did more damage because he had more time.
Yeah, but that's true.
Trump is it's not just. I'm not just talking about his demeanor, and because a lot of people don't like him personally, and I can understand that because he's a piece of garbage personally, but the policies and the lasting damage he did with the judges, just appointing all these right wing. There's so much minute stuff that he did that was just terrible. Now, he did, like, believe it or not, he actually did do a few positive stuff, but it get drowned out by all the negative he did. But that's a different story.
That's a different story. I mean, I think Trump did more. I mean, he's obviously done more damage, and well, in aggregate, Bush did a lot. He did more damage. I mean, he illegally invaded a country. I mean, for God's sake,
He got more people killed.
He got more people killed. The body. I mean, even with COVID, the body count still, in Bush's camp. Trump, in his own way, was able to. He was worse just in that the guy is so erratic, and you don't know what is going to come with him, even though he is transparent with his tweets. But I do agree. Yeah, he did a couple good things. Like on trade, he probably, I think, confronting China, that's good. I think that's fine. I think most Dems, if it wasn't Trump, if it was a Dem president who confronted China, they would have been good with that. His trade deal was just NAFTA 2.0, whatever. But obviously with him being president, the whole deficit hawkery of the GOP was gone for the last 3 years, 4 years. So you were able to have, even though the CARES Act wasn't
right,
great, it did have some good things in there, and it was only possible because you have a president who's not a deficit hawk at all. So that's a worry with a Biden administration, just because you don't know. Well, hopefully, he doesn't have the type of people Obama had around him, which is an improvement. But it's still gonna be.
I don't know. To me, his cabinet is worse than Obama's was.
I think Obama's was worse. I think Obama, looking just like doing a side by side comparison so far, like. Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, she spoke for millions of dollars, but she's not a Wall Street person per se. She's not Tim Geithner.
Geithner is bad. We talk about Geithner and Summer. Yes, I would.
Yeah.
But
the economic team is better. The HHS secretary is going to be better. DOJ, I think, will be a wash. Department of State, I think it's going to be whatever. It's going to be it'll be better.
Eric Holder did a few good things.
He did, yeah. But I think Biden will do a few. I think he'll do a few things that he will probably want the DOJ to do a few of those things again, plus whatever.
Well,
but
I voted for Biden because he had to go, but the signs I'm getting from his administrations is not good. He's already pointing to because Schumer and Warren had to push to forgive the $50,000 for student loans.
Yeah, they're still doing that behind the scenes too. Yeah,
Biden seems like he's going more with the $10,000 route.
That's what it seems like. Yeah, which is not enough. Like if he said 25K. Or 30K. I know actually at some point he was floating 30K back in the summer. His team was doing that because some Dems, they were going to slip an amendment into either the HEROES Act when it was being done or something like that. There's some buzz about that back then. But then they just settled on 10K in the legislation, right? So then that's why he's running with 10K, and I'm like, ugh. But the thing is, that's the thing with the Biden administration. Like he's since he's such a creature of the Senate, what if you have some representatives who want to cancel 50K, which there is a caucus of them, it looks like now in the House and in the Senate, but especially in the House, they have to be supported to slip whatever amendment they can into whatever budget reconciliation bill with COVID relief that's going to pass, especially if they win Georgia. I mean, that's the main thing right now. But obviously he can do it through his executive action because right now student loan payments are being suspended and there's no interest accruing because the executive branch has that power.
Schumer was pushing them to do it through executive order already.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, and he has the authority. I don't know why he's being coy with it and saying, I don't know if I have this power. Like, no, dude, you have this power.
He's a conservative Dem. and he's about corporate interests. Like Biden was
he's from Delaware.
Biden was my least favorite. Like maybe he wasn't. I really hated Mayor Pete too. Besides, like Pete and Klobuchar, I didn't like Klobuchar either.
Yeah, no,
because Klobuchar just is bad. But he was on the bottom tier of me who I wanted, just because I remember him voting for the Iraq War. I remember him being the architect of the crime bill.
Crime bill.
I was 10, but when reading about the crime bill and just knowing people that went to jail for just like stupid stuff, he's severely anti legalization of marijuana. So still need to be more studies. How many more studies do we need?
Right.
Come on. There's so much stuff. The only thing I'm expecting for him, I do expect his administration to have a decent response to COVID. Beyond that, I'm not expecting too much else.
I'm expecting the same thing. I think a competent COVID response to the vaccination rollout, I think that's going to be big. And you know what? He's going to get a lot of points for that going into 2022. But the Dems, I still think, are going to lose the House. But I think there is a scenario where Biden is actually pretty popular next year.
You think so?
Yeah, I actually think he might. I think he might be above water for most of this year and then part of next year, just because I think the public's going to be like, oh wow, the president's actually like taking this seriously. Like, so I think he might still be above 50%. I think he's going in right now. It's 55, I think, right now. So
yeah, which is not really that high.
Which is not high. It's not Obama 67% coming in back in 2009. Yeah.
Right.
But it's much higher than Trump has been, because Trump's been stuck at 45.
Didn't have a high approval rating coming in, but after 9/11, it jumped up to 91%.
Oh yeah.
So, like, he doesn't have a lot of room to spare, and I don't think he's going to get a honeymoon period.
No, he doesn't have a honeymoon. He has to actually deliver some stuff like immediately in the first 100 days.
He's already pissing off a lot of constituents already. A lot of Democratic base is unhappy with them. So we'll see.
We'll see. I'm gonna let him get in office first. Then then the smoke is gonna come out. Yeah. But I'm not expecting. If the Dems win the Senate, I am expecting one big budget bill, and I am expecting decent judges that will be confirmed by the Senate. But other than that,
not because he's already pissing off some black constituents with the farming bill, with
USDA,
the bill that Cory Booker introduced, the Justice for Black Farmers bill. A lot of black people behind the scenes are working on that for a long time, quietly.
Yeah. Actually, that was one of Cory Booker's best traits in the campaign, was that policy. And that's why I think he had a decent, people were saying he had a decent ground game in Iowa, and back in the summer of 2019, a lot of people were saying that.
Yep. So that and just a lot of stuff. We could go on all day. The one last thing before we get off of here is about Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Two things about her. Since we got a little bit of time, I'm just gonna smush these together. Number one, if the Dems win these 2 Georgia seats, do you see her as kind of being like a de facto Senate Democrat leader, because they're going to need her vote to get anything passed? So she'll be the 51st vote. Technically, the vice president is president
of the Senate. Yeah.
She has Senate experience. Do you foresee her taking a bigger role than most vice presidents ever took in the Senate? That's number one. And what's your thoughts about this plagiarism accusation? Not even accusation, but I'll just give you my opinion on that real quick. Like, do people really think these politicians write their own speeches?
Yeah.
So it was a staffing mistake.
Right.
Like,
It must have been because it was so blatant, like how she just copied the MLK story.
maybe she pissed off one of her staffers, and her staffers like, all right.
Right,
One of her writers like, all right, this is what I'm going to do.
right. And the interesting thing is, so Kamala is actually the same age as my mom.
Mhm.
And actually, my mom and her kind of look alike a little bit. My mom actually got confused for her a few times on the street, just because we're near DC. So it's like it could be her, right?
Yeah.
So the funny thing is, so she was born in '64, right?
Right.
And so she's talking about marches when she was like what 7 years old. So that's the early '70s.
Right.
So I mean, it's not that far off, but it's like, it's especially in Oakland. I mean, she was raised in Oakland, California, so I don't know. It's kind of interesting. So my thoughts on that is it screams, Washington D.C. fakeness. Like, all these politicians, like you said, they got their staffers who make this stuff up for them. They use composite stories all the time to show that they're of the people and all of this other stuff, and try to relate to the constituents and whatnot. So it's not surprising. It's crazy how blatant it was, but it definitely does seem like a staffing mistake.
Yeah.
And then with her being the president of the Senate, so she's only been in the Senate for 4 years, but but if you've noticed, she hasn't really been out in the spotlight since the election. If you really look at it, she's been pretty quiet. Besides going down to Georgia and doing some rallies and stuff, she's just there in the background, right? So I don't know. I don't think she's going to be that forceful. I think she's going to let Schumer run the show. I think she's just going to let Schumer control that, and she'll just come into place when she's needed.
The only reason I'm saying that is obvious that the establishment want her to run 2024.
2024, yeah.
So I think even if she doesn't have anything to do with the legislation per se, I think the Biden administration is going to have more to do with the Senate than usual, because both of their roles in the Senate and the fact that you will need her vote to do anything, basically. Split.
Right.
She'll get more face time in that role than most vice presidents will.
She will, and she will have leverage over like the stuff. Like, she will definitely have some leverage just because of her vote. But the thing is, the interesting or uninteresting thing about her is she doesn't really care about policy that much
At all.
At all. So I don't know what's important to her. Like, for example, she was for Medicare for all, then she had a Medicare Advantage for all plan, and then that's basically what it was. And then she had
I just did a video on this. My video before.
Yeah.
I just did a video on it, breaking that down.
Yeah, and then also $2,000 checks, right? She was the lead co-sponsor with Bernie and Ed Markey on $2,000 stimulus checks recurring, and she was pushing for it in the summer. Like, I will give her credit, but she was named VP by Biden, and then that proposal kind of went by the wayside, and the only people that were talking about it was, Bernie, Ed Markey, and in the House you had Ro Khanna, Tim Ryan,
right,
and even some other people. And obviously, you have Andrew Yang, and his organization was lobbying a lot of members of Congress. So then she kind of like went by the wayside, even though she was doing events in the summer, pushing for that proposal.
She's the one that actually introduced it in the Senate, which is wild.
That's what I'm saying. And she was like, she was doing media stuff even before she was even named the VP nominee. So I don't know what's important to her. I think she's all over the place, to be honest with you, and it really depends on what's popular at the moment.
Eric MH is asking, "Who are you voting for?" What do you mean? Can you clarify? So that's somebody in the chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Who are you voting for? I'm not sure what he means.
If he's talking about Georgia, I would be voting for Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff all day, every day.
Oh, definitely. But I don't live in Georgia, so I can't.
I don't live in Georgia either, so I don't got to vote or a say in it.
Yeah, but if you clarify what you mean, I'll give you an answer. But yeah, all right. So, anything else you want to add?
Nah, it's been cool so far. Just praying for the best in Georgia. So that way, at least, some organizers that friend of mine knows down there in the ground. The main thing is they're getting out the vote not because the Democrats are great. No, they're getting out the vote because if you have the Democrats have control, narrow control, then you can remove most of the excuses. You can remove most of the excuses to have a window to do something. And I think, and there are a lot of Dems in Obama world in DC and whatnot. They do realize how big of an opportunity they had in 09 and 10. I mean, people are not that stupid, but the problem is the ideology, the policy prescriptions,
One of the things I
and
can't.
whatnot.
I got to do this in the Promised Land book, right?
Yeah,
He talked about the public option,
right.
and um, he was talking about what part of 60 votes do they not understand. But I'm like, you didn't have 60 votes to pass the Affordable Care Act to begin with. Now, if you say
Exactly.
you could have did the public option through reconciliation, because that does affect the budget. So I'm
Facts.
like that's what I'm saying. Like people that
And the reason, and then they were scared of the Congressional Budget Office projections. That's what they were all scared about. And I'm like, it's so stupid. Like, because if they had done the public option and if they had done Medicaid expansion in 2010 instead of 2013, 2014, like, I'm not saying that Dems would have kept the House, but they might not have lost 62 seats.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, so that's the big thing. Like, it's just crazy how, and plus there was a version of the ACA that passed with reconciliation, that passed the House. Nancy Pelosi passed it.
Right.
So all
Yeah.
this revisionism history by Obama is just it's just funny. I'm not even mad about it anymore. I'm just like, because I remember, being 21 years old back then, like 20 years old, like, oh wow, we're gonna get healthcare. And then I read all the blogs and the Twitter back then, and I was like, yo, I feel so betrayed because it's
Well,
like,
it was before that. It was the beer summit where I was like, yo, that beer summit.
yeah, I was not happy about that, but I was like, I'll let that slide. It's the first year. He's got 65% approval rating, but then his approval ratings went down after that, which is, he was down after that. So
Man, Eric in the chat saying that he doesn't vote. Now, I'm just going to say to you, I'm not one of these old heads that just be like, you better vote and wag. Everybody is grown. Everybody make their own decisions. The only thing I say is I explain the reasons why I vote and why I personally think that's the best option. But at the end of the day, you got to do what you feel right. I personally vote for minute issues because I'm policy heavy, stuff that we don't sometimes I won't assume. I don't vote because there's issues that oftentimes we take for granted and don't even think about that's highly important, and it's candidate and sometimes party specific. Just just little minute stuff, like as garbage as the Democrats are in New York State. Because I live in New York State, right? They got rid of cash bail last year in New York State. That's almost entirely party specific. Matter of fact, the Republicans been fighting tooth and nail to get rid of cash, to overturn that law ever since it's passed. And
Right.
cash bail specifically impacts poor people and specifically impact poor Black people because a lot of times the judges give us disproportionate bail money. It's a whole
Facts.
thing. A lot of people make money off of it. So I'm really unsatisfied, even though it's getting a little bit better here in New York State, but I'm unsatisfied with the Dems here. Even with that said, they are better than Republicans in the state. So that's just one issue. I could go on and on.
We're similar in Maryland. I mean, it's another blue state. Though I think the Dems in New York State, there is like, you can see the left wing being a little bit more ascendant, because you can see that in the state legislature.
Right.
And now there's a supermajority Dem, I think now, legislature now, which is going to change the dynamics a bit compared to how it was a couple of years ago. So in Maryland, though, we have a supermajority too, the House and the Senate, but it's it's very. This is probably very establishment heavy state. The left wing, if you're talking about the left wing Dems, their power is not that great, and a lot of old money, old party bosses, old party machine still runs the state. But like you said, there's a couple issues where they've done a couple of good things. And even with a Republican governor right now, who ironically opposes those things and vetoes laws, like if it's like dealing with like cannabis or if it's dealing with something like that. But the thing is, he'll veto them, and then what he did in his re-election campaign was take credit for them. It's like, I did great environmental regulations, or I did this and that, and I'm like, yo, the legislature vetoed you. Yeah. And then he was able to undercut Ben Jealous, who was the nominee, the former NAACP president, and then you had all these Dems voting for the Republican, which is crazy. So states like Maryland, and then California is a little bit like that. New York, Massachusetts, it's just like that. I mean, you have these states where it's Dem electorate, but they will vote for a Republican for governor, and it just shows me how stupid voters are. But
yeah, I mean, Pataki before Eliot Spencer, Pataki won like, I don't know what, 2-3 terms here in New York.
Right. Oh yeah, right. He was after Cuomo, right?
Yeah, he was after Mario Cuomo.
Mario Cuomo, yeah.
Right, and just federally too. The reason why, one of the other reasons I voted for Biden, even though I can't stand him, judges.
Yeah, it's important. It's huge.
Very important. So it's just.
And if Dems win tonight, then he can replace Justice Breyer, who's 80 years old,
right? Or is he?
I think he's 81 or 82. Yeah, he's up there.
22nd.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, not to be morbid, but Clarence Thomas is old as crap, as is Alito's old as crap. So you never know what can happen, just like we saw with Justice Ginsburg. Like, I think a lot of people thought she could make it a couple more months, but she couldn't make it. So
even before the Supreme Court, people don't talk about the two lower courts.
They don't talk. Yeah, the lower courts. Even the one thing the Dems might, if the Dems wanted to go big on something, they could expand the lower courts. And one thing with Biden is he has been part of that effort before. He was part of that effort in the 70s when Carter was president. So that's one thing Biden actually might be in favor of doing. And there's some talk from some people in his transition team that, because they're not going to be able to, expand the Supreme Court, but expanding the lower courts might be another way. And plus, the lower courts have to be expanded too. I mean, it's a long overdue as well. That's a whole nother topic.
It's a lot of stuff. That's why sometimes my friends on the left just be like, I don't know how you expect that to happen. When they talking about pushing the Supreme Court out, I don't even know how you begin to do that, especially if you don't have massive numbers in Congress to do that.
Yeah, you need the Senate, you need it, you need a good majority. I mean, FDR couldn't even do it, and he tried to muscle, he threatened to muscle more judges on the Supreme Court, and he couldn't even do it, and he had majorities, huge majorities. So it's tough.
If you don't have those super numbers in Congress to get that done, maybe if you have like a super majority in the House and the Senate, maybe that. But if you don't, they're going to challenge it, and that's going to go to court, and then you're going to have the judges deciding on their own fate.
Right.
Right. So
that's just funny.
Yeah. So sometimes like we have to be realistic with some of the stuff and that doesn't mean we give up on the goal, but you have to have a realistic timetable and a realistic strategy to get some of this stuff done as well. And that's a whole nother story. All right, we kept you longer than expected. So next time we got a lot of stuff to talk about, man. We could talk about Yang and his run for mayor.
Mhm.
Yang is a mixed character to me. There's a lot of stuff about Yang I like, and there's some stuff I'm like, that give me pause.
Yeah,
Well,
same here, same here. And I've met him actually. I met him a year and a half ago, actually, out here in DC. He's a nice guy. He's the exact same you see him like on TV and whatnot. Like he does get what people, especially like in the millennial generation, are going through with student debt and jobs and whatnot. And because Venture for America, whatever critique you have, it did do some stuff for college students or graduating students around the country in terms of getting them more into entrepreneurship. And he did travel the country, so that and he does have a pulse of what's going on in a lot of the country, which is why when he was saying UBI, like if you know what's going on around the country with how people are struggling, they live in paycheck to paycheck. Well, hell yeah, of course. And this pandemic showed that. So but the things on like healthcare, things on like a little bit on his stances on big tech are a little problematic. He does want to break some of the companies up, but he doesn't want to do it for all of them. But he does, but he's like a little softer on them than like some of the other candidates who are in the primary, obviously, because he does have Silicon Valley connections, even though he's from New York. But so yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, there's some things he's really good on, but there's some other things it's like, eh. And if he's running for mayor of New York and he has Bloomberg behind him, that's not a good sign. So, but I got love for Andrew. He's a good dude though.
Yep. So I could say this objectively. I think there's not a lot of shows that could chop it up like us. So we're gonna be doing that, especially from a Black point of view. There's only a few that can do that. I like Benjamin Dixon. I think
I like Ben. Yeah.
His crew do a good job of breaking stuff down. The Majority Report do a pretty good job of breaking stuff down.
Yep.
Policies. It's some other shows too. TYT just for I don't agree with everything they do, but like just from their longevity.
Yeah, going way back,
Yeah,
they've been at it for a minute.
Generally, it always given them credit for covering some of the stories that the mainstream media wasn't covering when it came to police brutality back in the day. So I give them credit as well.
Mm-hmm.
But just breaking down poor policy, I think we up there with anybody, and we can do it from a younger Black perspective as well.
That's true.
So yeah, that's with us because we're gonna be breaking down these issues, man. All right, thanks for
All right, all right, everybody.
All right, peace.